perfect. I just went live.
I gave myself brain freeze.
I think this is what people come to the stream for, is listening to you talk about brain freeze while synthwave plays.
Quiet, hun. I heard you. Get from the bathroom, all I hear is my girlfriend going, "Bravo!"
Bravo.
So freaking hot here. It's like 87.8 degrees Fahrenheit right now. And we also have a humidity. So that's not fun.
One day I'll learn what my own titles are. I was going to say, we were going to let the music play out, but now we're talking about humidity, which is interesting because we should be talking about Star Wars. But tell me, so I was very curious about the weather because the thing about Canada is that you're above me latitudinally, longitudinally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, Celsius and a whole bunch of other stuff in that. But I converted it to Fahrenheit for you guys.
Nice. You converted it to freedom units for the stupid imperial Americans below. So.
Not all Americans are dumb.
Right.
I mean, if that was the case, I wouldn't be with you guys.
Yeah, that is true. What do you? I was gonna say, what's your honest to God feeling about like imperial units versus metric?
Eh?
Because it is the classic argument of like metric, the math just works out. It just works. It just works out. It's like, there's a hundred of thing, a ten of thing, a one of thing, a thousand of thing, or whatnot. It becomes the superior way to do this. It becomes the superior way to execute on this like this the whole mathematics of it. Whereas like the one big selling point of Imperial is the fact that it's really tactile. An inch is like very easy to quantify because it's like a natural there's like a natural frame of reference for it. A foot is like really easy to quantify because there's like a natural reference for it. A yard is easy to quantify because there's like a natural reference for it. And all of it just comes down to is like that's it. That's the whole appeal of the system. The math is a nightmare. And that's it. The one big appeal is the fact that it's like it's highly tactile and it like reckons. These are like very spatially quantifiable delineations for the human brain. So yeah, they're essentially base 12, except for when they're not. Is the other thing.
Did it again.
Yeah. I mean, I
just a little bit.
Scott, it's your fault. This is happening.
I know.
It's your fault.
But it's so good.
I mean, I know, but like, it's your fault.
So the entire stream is just us talking randomly and me randomly giving myself brain freeze.
My god, it sucks. Well, I don't know. We are talking about Star Wars today, so it might not be the only head trauma that you give yourself.
Knowing AK, he's probably gonna clip a bunch of them of me giving myself brain freeze.
Brain freeze montage. Come on, give us enough for a montage. Let's go. Chug your drink. Chug your. Don't do that.
No.
I forgot what. Oh yeah, I forgot. I remember because here's an honest to God thing that I don't know about Canadians or Canadian society. Do you guys have jury duty?
Yes.
You do. Okay, so you have a system similar to the United States where like occasionally you are summoned to take place in a jury-based system.
I get confused. Is it innocent until proven guilty or guilty until proven innocent for you guys?
Innocent until proven guilty is like supposed to be the big appeal of it. The idea that like, you are the state cannot if the state accuses you of a crime, the state has to prove it. It's not up to you to then, prove your innocence beyond a reasonable doubt. That was like the big selling point, or one of the big selling points of the American Revolution was the idea that like you could just get put in jail if they don't like you, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean every society on Earth that considers itself meaningfully democratic, it's innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, we're presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, exactly. Then beyond reasonable doubt, yada yada. So that's good. But the other big kicker is innocent until proven guilty by trial of your peers.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the big kicker. Because
basically any person charged with an offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, according to law, in a fair and public hearing by the independent and impartial tribunal.
Okay, gotcha. And that tribunal is composed of citizens in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you have basically the Okay, this is all leading up to me telling you that I had jury duty this morning, and as a result, I was up way earlier than I usually would be.
And you're not allowed to talk about it, so that's the end of that conversation.
That's essentially nothing happened. I got passed over for service. They didn't need me. It was a slow day at the courthouse, but I was still there a while, and it's all the way in the city.
Okay.
It's not super far. It's not like I live in like, the sticks like Chris Muller does. It's just, it's a haul.
At least you don't live in the core of a city.
Yeah, I really like visiting the core of cities. I really like visiting downtown. Probably.
I don't think you'd like this one.
I mean, I don't know. What is there like? I like big buildings. I like bars. I like
Did I break you?
Nah, I'm just trying to think about what I like in cities. It's food, booze, and architecture is like what I like about cities. Um,
Food is like everybody else's. Bars is like everybody else's. And let's see here, agriculture or anything like that. Eh, I mean, we're rich in history, I guess. Kind of.
well, yeah, I mean, like, do you have cool buildings? It's
No,
like, what's up? Yeah. Do you have like big, tall buildings with a lot of glass? That shit is cool to me.
kinda. I mean, we have a few.
Okay, very
I
well.
mean, they're not extravagant.
Look up the population of Winnipeg for me.
Okay.
Let's see whose city is bigger.
Winnipeg right now. Current metro area population of Winnipeg is, in 2021 is 825,000.
825,000. Wow, you are almost double the size of Sacramento.
But we are the smallest big town ever. I guarantee you, no matter where you go in Winnipeg, you're going to find somebody you know.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is here too. We're also it's wild
Yeah.
because we are the capital. Sacramento is the capital city of California. Um, at least as far as the metropolitan population is concerned, about 500,000 people live here. Meanwhile, Los Angeles, not the capital city of California, 4 million, 8 times, 800% as far as like people are concerned.
Mm.
So we get a bit of flack for that. You're
Yeah,
not
but
a real
place-
city.
Yeah, but your place is like Sacramento is like awesome when I went there. I mean, sure, yeah, it was only for a week, but
I mean, a
compared,
week's long enough to get to know a place.
yeah, like there's always something to do in Sacramento. In Winnipeg,
I drug you
there's
to a lot of
nothing
nonsense.
to do in this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I drug you through a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, and that's just
soon.
nonsense.
Soon it's gonna be Killjoy's turn.
No, just wait. Like once everything opens up again, and we're allowed to travel again. We're making a surprise visit.
Oh jeez.
Surprise! Ah, fuck.
Oh, fuck. I'm not home. I'm in LA with my dad. Something.
Just show up at Reggie's house.
For sure.
Here's Johnny.
I've
But not
never
to-
I've never hung out with AK in person, obviously, and I've never hung out with Killjoy in person, obviously. But I've been to both of their respective like major areas in the towns that they live in. And I will say
Right.
that Killjoy lives in Hawaii, so that's just great in general. But I got to visit Hawaii as a tourist, so
I would love to go visit there.
Hawaii's really cool. I don't know if I can live there. It seems like a lot, but boy oh boy is it just really beautiful in a way that I just can't really quantify a lot of other real places actually on Earth are. And I love the birds. Just the mainland America doesn't have a lot of like really cool bird situations going on, at least as far as the coasts are concerned. Inland, you get the eagles and stuff like that. We have some falcons around here. That's the coolest. Hawaii is the most ludicrous avian like species situation ever. So, it's a cool building, Killjoy. That's pretty good. And then AK, yeah, Texas. I come from California. Particularly, I was born in Southern California, which means I know what good Mexican food tastes like. And here's the thing: they serve Mexican food all across this great nation of ours, from bow to stern, top to bottom. They serve Mexican food. And
Oh man,
and it's not the same.
what kind of food
40
they have on the Star Wars planets? Sorry to derail you there.
Oh, I wonder what kind of food they have on those Star Wars planets. Does this work as a segue? It does, AK.
Segue.
I'm often baffled by the food situation in Star Wars. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's like all of ours. It's our food only in Star Wars.
Anybody can eat anything from any planet or drink almost any. I know it's space magic for sure. Every single planet is terraformed for everybody. Breathing and eating is like not a huge issue. So
Everybody can breathe oxygen.
yeah, there's like nobody has like there's like a few species with like what is it? I know there's a handful of species that breathe like ammonia based atmospheres, and they have to wear like crazy gas masks. But like otherwise, 9 out of 10 species that you see are like completely able to hang in there in any atmosphere, like with maybe long-term complications only. Which is one of the bigger stretches of the series for sure, as far as like like to science fact. And that's in a setting that has people moving spaceships with their brains. So,
yeah.
Oh man, let's talk about Star Wars. Let's talk about Star Wars proper.
All right. How do we want to approach this? Which direction do we want to go? Do we want to start with Saga, or do we want to go with the extended universe?
I mean, we're probably gonna touch on both a little bit, but I feel like let's talk about the movies first, and then let's not get too caught up in the movies because there's other shit to talk about in the Star Wars universe. So, that's like a whole thing. So let me start with this because this is I think as reasonable a Star Wars question to start off on as there ever was, and I ask it to chat as well. What is your favorite Star Wars movie? Not talking about the franchise, not talking about any of the other offshoot stuff. Talking about live action movies.
So episode 1 to 9.
Rogue One as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Solo movie, because we have to count that as well.
And the Solo movie, yes.
Okay, I've already got my answer.
Okay. I'm still a little torn on mine, to be perfectly honest. But
well, let's hear yours. I want to hear yours first.
Okay. So here's kind of where I am, and I'm going to give you a 2. And my only I know that's not necessarily fair what I asked, but I do feel it's an apples to oranges scenario.
Okay.
Rogue One.
Rogue One was flawless. Let's face it.
And Empire Strikes Back.
God damn it. People are gonna fight me on this one. My favorite one, obviously, Empire Strikes Back. Nothing beats that movie. It was just perfect in every way. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some moments that you kind of look at it and go, "What?"
It was,
but
I mean, it was the moment the franchise like really sprouted wings. That's to me what's so special. Episode 4 came out, and it was this cultural phenomenon, and it's this amazing movie in its own respect, and no one had seen anything like it and whatnot. But when something like that happens, and we've seen it before, when these absolute like cultural phenomenons drop and whatnot, then that was one thing. They had made their money, the franchise was on the board, like, all this sort of stuff. Suddenly people very much gave a shit about Star Wars. The question is, okay, first time luck, second time skill. You got to, the real heart and soul and like future of the franchise really resided on their ability to like continue on with what they had created. And then Empire Strikes Back comes out. Basically, the only answer to like, can George Lucas do it again? Can he pull this off?
Yes.
Are we going to see something else that is like at all similar to what we saw in A New Hope? Or like, is this something that's going to continue to deliver? And the answer was, holy fuck, yes.
And I thought that Return of the Jedi actually ended it all bittersweet. Everything was just nicely wrapped up in a nice little ball and went, here you go.
What was that? Good. Rogue One?
No, I'm talking Return of the Jedi.
Oh, Return of the Jedi.
Like, to end off the original trilogy, it was just, everything was wrapped up in a nice little ball and went, here you go.
Yeah. I was gonna say I really have a very tremendous amount of love for all of the original trilogy. The next question is I think going to spearhead into a
Well,
the
sorry to cut you off there on that, but I agree with AK. Episode 3 was actually my second choice.
yeah. Well, yeah, I really like episode 3. So to that note, because we looked at the top, kind of like, you're saying, so your answer was you really liked Rogue One.
Well, I liked Rogue One, but it was number 3 to me.
It was number 3. Okay, episode 3 is your second, and then what was your number 1?
My number 1 was Empire. Empire Strikes Back.
Empire. Okay, gotcha. All right, cool.
It's Empire.
It's fucking Empire. Yeah, it's great. Luke, I am your father. Like the most
everybody at the same time.
Yeah, like one of the most prolific twists in cinema history. The moment like the stakes of like the entire franchise were like really, really, really upped. The most quoted element, yeah, of everything in it, kind of like all came down to that. The fucking Hoth scene. I mean, Cloud City, Lando,
the asteroid chase.
Yeah, that's
Dagobah.
yeah, fucking Dagobah. Luke training with Yoda makes his appearance. He fucking pulls an X-wing out. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, this one really took off. The only thing, the only unkind thing I think that I have to say about Episode 5 was it was a bit exposition heavy.
Well, that was the point of it, though. It was
for sure. They were like introducing you to this universe, and the good news is those moments that did have action, namely the Hoth scene in the beginning, and much later on, the like many minute long fight between Luke and Vader that ends in like the fucking turbo shaft of the Cloud City, cuts off his arm. Luke, I am your father. He falls out or whatnot. Those two are some of like the most remembered, most beloved like action sequences in the whole damn thing. So pacing's a little bit weird to judge, but obviously it got around that pretty good. So we both agree. We obviously both agree on 5.
5 being the best one.
Yeah. 3's a little lower for me, but it's not low at all.
The reason why I liked 3 was the way that they told the fall of Anakin. And it made sense. It made total sense in why he turned to the dark side.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it was an excellent portrayal, and it's this huge moment in the series where it's like this, and this. I have like just dialogue gripes with episode 3. I think is it.
Yeah, but the worst one out of this, okay, here's the better question. What's your worst?
See, this is what I was going to. Is I was like, okay, which one do you hate the most?
I have 2.
Yeah, I mean, I also have 2 maybe as well.
What's your number 1?
I do not care for Clone Wars.
You too? I hated the Attack of the Clones.
There's some real cool like sequences in Attack of the Clones, but I think Attack of the Clones felt.
There is only 2 scenes in Attack of the Clones that I remember. You gonna buy some death sticks? No, I don't want. You don't want to sell me death sticks.
Yeah,
no, I don't want to sell me death sticks. You want to go home and rethink your life.
I really enjoy the Anakin Obi-Wan banter. In the beginning, basically before Padme enters the picture. It's on track to become this amazing movie because, and here's the one, if I'm going to ever convince you to like how to like episode 2, I will say that
straddle in, Vlad, because you're in for a huge disappointment for 8.
Yeah, right. Well,
that was number 2.
I was gonna say, was the other one you were gonna say, The Last Jedi? Was that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The whole purpose of it was just absolute dumpster fire.
We'll get to 8. We'll get to 8. We're still talking about 2. We're still talking about 2.
Okay. 2.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, 2. Basically, I mean. Let's talk about the good in 2 real quick, because here's the one really, really cool, appealing thing about 2. If you think of Star Wars Episode 2, not as a movie, not as a piece of cinema, and certainly not as a like a moment in the like Star Wars franchise, but just simply as a Star Wars D&D game, then it becomes hilarious, because
It does.
the entire thing plays out precisely, almost weirdly, like a D&D session would, in the idea that there's like this super compelling beginning, there's all this cool banter between these characters. It feels like, and much like a D&D game, Anakin and Obi-Wan walk into this movie with like a decade of some of the most insanely bullshit, like, super spy adventures. And they keep referencing shit that you haven't even seen. That's like the best part of the whole thing. Is number two made me hungry for this franchise that I don't think we'll ever get, but it's
Killjoy. Oh God, that would be a can of worms. We'd never hear the end of it from Rich.
yeah, I was gonna
We
say,
would never hear the end of it.
Rich will decide if he's friends with you or not, based on how you talk about Star Wars. So,
This is a topic he is not welcome in.
oh man, yeah, for sure. Me and him. Remind me to tell you this story later, but like me and him got into like like he was legitimately upset with me like semi recently because of my opinion on like what constitutes a muffin versus a cupcake. Like
Seriously?
yeah, he was like, no joke, like very upset with me.
What was his take on it? Just so I'm curious. Actually, you know what? We'll go talk to me about that afterwards.
Yeah, I was gonna say just put a pin in that one, because he was like real mad, and it's not the first time that like those petty like delineation, like, is a hot dog a sandwich kind of thing. He has exactly the answer to every single one of those things, and if you present a dissenting opinion, he doesn't want to hear it. and he's like, no, why would you, like, he gets very upset. So there's that.
Muffin button.
Yeah.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
Not the muffins, not the control buttons. Yeah.
So one of my favorite scenes in 2
Yeah.
had to have been the Yoda Dooku fight. I'm sorry.
Yoda
That's
Dooku was cool.
Badass.
I loved that he like can move around and like flip a whole lot or whatnot. I think still, and it was like cool eye candy for me in the day and whatnot, all sort of stuff. I still would like slow, methodical samurai Yoda if I ever got the situation, but he's so short, so like, who the fuck cares, kind of thing. Not at all the problem with this thing. Also, Dooku, Dooku, that very meaningful Star Wars villain that is basically the bad guy throughout all of 2, and definitely goes on to do important things in episode 3, right?
Do you know that actually Dooku has a unique fighting style?
I did, yes, because he is self-taught.
Yes, and his saber is curved for a reason.
Yes, it is. Dkaelynd, you're talking to the fight scene guy. Of course, I know.
I know.
I know all the little bullshit
they know
about.
this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Dooku was neat. He just. I don't know. Obviously, he ended very abruptly in 3, and I know that like it was like supposed to be like there was the extra weight of the idea that like Palpatine never foresaw him being sort of his apprentice and da 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 da. It was just there to drive Anakin and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
but,
he was not a Sith at all.
No, he was a rich dude who wanted to be telekinetic, and to his point, he figured it out. So
well, he was taught as a Jedi apprentice, and then fell and and left, and then the rest is history.
Right. The episode 2 was. I think AK really summed it up the other day. Just like episode 2 was just kind of forgettable.
It's slow paced and boring.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, I feel like when people have gripes about the prequels, they generally complain about how it was over stylized, that a lot of the lightsaber combat took on this kooky, like, acrobatic, like, whoosh, 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 whoosh thing away from, like, the very grounded kendo-based, thing that like, the
It wasn't even that. It was more exposition heavy compared to like the others.
Right. There were a lot of characters. People were kind of like, what? All this sort of stuff. Pacing was a little bit odd. I think it was a little bit hard to get like really intense emotional connections to Padme and Anakin because um they were just like two young actors who hadn't really hit their stride yet. All basically my what I'm getting at is the idea is like whatever problem you have with the prequels, if you have a problem at all, generally speaking, that problem is on display the worst in episode
Yeah.
2. Yeah.
You know the funny thing about it is when I went into theaters to see episode 2, I sat there and I'm like, am I watching George Lucas's like Saga's campaign? Like honestly, what?
Yeah,
it felt like a Saga's campaign.
it got a little weird for sure. So yeah, I think that now two again, 2 is not a terrible movie. It's just it's almost worse. It's forgettable, kind of thing. That's like
if it was his own movie, it'd be fine.
maybe I don't know. They really should have maybe recast a few of those roles, but I don't know, man. Tell me about episode 8, Last Jedi.
Okay.
And don't and keep it relatively concise because I know you could go on about this one for a while.
So the first half of the movie is slow-paced nonsense of chasing after the rebels fleeing and that. Random stuff happens. They decide to pull like random Jedi bullshit out of the wazoo with Leia. And then random adventure of Finn and Rose. And completely, if it's not for the fact of exposition, Luke Skywalker taking a left turn on his character development.
Ooh, Killjoy asking a really good question. I'm going to put a pin in that one. Yes, Scott, I agree on all accounts. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I liked Force sensitive Leia. That was kind of cool. I don't know if that was the way to do it. My problem with that scene was not Force sensitive Leia. It was them killing Admiral Akbar.
Off screen kind of deal?
Off screen. He's like my fucking favorite dude. And they killed him right then and there. He just got sucked out into the void. And they just mentioned like, oh, Admiral Akbar's dead. So here's here's the thing. And this is like where I start to get up in Kathleen Kennedy's business. Because I think the way to do that movie that was awesome was to oh god, who was the commander that Jurassic Park girl was playing?
I don't care.
The one with the pink hair who was like the rebel commander.
I don't remember.
Yeah, see, that's the fucking problem.
I don't want to remember it. It was that bad.
No, yeah. So it's not that she was bad. It was just like, why the fuck was she there? We didn't need, and I know.
Who are you?
I know that like. So this is the thing. This is why. This is why like all those people that I hate to listen to speak because their thoughts make me angry are always like, oh yeah, Star Wars went super woke and feminist and then it got bad, and I'm like, first of all, shut up. Second of all, it's not that. And
poor writing is poor.
Say what?
Poor writing is poor.
There were so many ways to do that, like better or whatnot and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, like, and quite contrary or whatnot. It's like being woke, quote unquote, does not involve just like inserting like just people who don't like you don't have any emotional connection to, and just being like care about them because they're a woman or whatnot. That's like the opposite. That's like super That's like super reductive.
Garrett, I got it.
Yeah.
Here's the way to make Admiral Akbar's death seem epic.
I
get rid of the character that did everything or whatnot. That
he should have been the one to fucking hyperspace
exactly.
into the fucking juggernaut. Ah! How would that scene have played differently if all of a sudden it was like fucking Admiral Akbar and he was like powering up the last ship of the Rebel fleet and he was like, fuck you idiots. It just went, gadung, like this. And all of a sudden it's like, and then later when they had to walk it back and be like, oh my God, that was a 1 in a million piloting maneuver that we could never exploit for plot reasons ever again because it was so insanely powerful, it would make sense that Admiral Akbar was the one executing that move and not this woman who, you know what? If I had had a little bit more time to get to know her, if I had had a few movies where she was like doing stuff and like, like doing all this sort of stuff, then that would have been an amazing scene, and all this sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, it was just like, I remember watching this and just being like, who are you?
More, yeah, I would have had more connection to Lando's co-pilot from Return of the Jedi than
yeah, the little turtle dude who's like, yeah, like, if he was just like, boom, and like just chunked it. Yeah, that would have been crazy.
Yeah, I would have been like, that was badass. But this person sacrificing herself, you barely had anything in the entire movie except, okay, this girl's an asshole.
She yells at Poe at one point, which is a tactical decision that she like throws him in the brig. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's a little bit of a hothead, but that's fully your best soldier. And you guys are about ready to do a suicide mission, so he does not need to be in the brig, all right?
What he was doing was generally, like, legitimate. Like,
oh, no, he fully belonged on the brig in a normal mission. But, like, everybody, it was an all-hands, like, oh, my God, like, I can't believe, like,
well,
it's just...
The thing is, though, in that is the entire concept of why Poe is against everything is because he was left in the dark. Nobody knew anything except follow my orders.
Yeah, and I think they wanted to set up this situation where this big, powerful woman was talking down to the punk-ass dude because, that I think that seemed...
It was like, unnecessary, though.
Like important to their story and whatnot. And, God, that just sucks. That really sucks. That's their version of, like... like we're going to empower women like with this situation where this character you don't know talks down to this other guy about a literal misunderstanding that a child could figure out. Like that's such a stupid interpretation of that whole thing.
Yeah, like episode 8 was nothing but 3/4 of the movie being a waste of freaking time.
Like, God, there was some fucking really cool fight scenes in that.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like 3/4 of the movie, you're kind of sitting there like, huh?
What? And then like Kylo Ren and Rey are like back to back. So here's also fun. I don't know if you know this about episode 8, but a lightsaber never touches another lightsaber. Anywhere in episode 8. And apparently that was a very deliberate, like written down on the whiteboard decision by Rian Johnson because he was like,
well, there was one part that did have it, but it wasn't really technically there. And that was the Ghost Luke versus Kylo.
Yeah, that is true. Killjoy talking about Captain Phasma. Yeah. Like, there's your really cool, deeply established female role, like, right?
And that was wasted.
And it was played by Gwendolyn Christie. She gonna act her ass off. She's great.
And that was wasted.
Okay. Did you know canonically Captain Phasma's armor is made from the hull of Queen Amidala's Naboo ship?
Yep.
Do you know why?
Because she's Naboo?
No, it's literally never explained. Is the answer?
No, it's
not explained in anything. At one point in one of the books, they're like the armor was like forged from like the Naboo starship of the Royal Queen, and you're like, whoa, interesting. Would love to hear more about that.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, that was wasted.
Yeah, that's like, oh my God, guys, why? Why this?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that this is the classic example of like probably too many cooks, probably too many different vectors to please, too many people that are concerned about like the politics and the appearance of the movie, and then and a lot of very deeply corporate interest over here, and then on the other side you've got this this director who's very vocal about like I don't love Star Wars, and I'm very interested in doing Star Wars my way, and I'm very interested in making it not at all, um, like not at all like any Star Wars you've seen before.
Right. Like 7, 8, and 9, the entire trilogy there was a waste. It was like it's like they wanted to just basically look at Han, Leia, and Luke, and basically and everything that happened previous to 7, and throw it out the window. And we're gonna do our own thing, like make it a separate story.
I appreciate the idea of like, they were going to have to introduce some new characters to begin with. They were, because, they weren't going to get Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford ducking through, like any more than they did. That was already a big ask, and I'm pretty sure it was like in Harrison's contract that he was going to get killed off pretty much at the first opportunity.
Even in like statements afterwards, after Rise of the Skywalker episode 9 was done, Mark Hamill even pointed out that this was not the Luke he knew. It was some ridiculous version of him. He didn't like it at all.
Yeah, and they very clearly tried to like walk that back in episode 8 and whatnot, and then God, I hope he feels redeemed after his absolutely stellar appearance in Mandalorian. So.
Yeah, well, 9. Okay. Oh boy, do I even want to touch this one?
I was gonna say, 9.
The whole concept of the movie just totally invalidated Vader's redemption.
Yeah, that's kind of an abstract way to look at it. It is Rey kind of sliding into this position of like being, kind of the person there.
The trailer gave it away, but if you guys watch the trailer for Rise of the Skywalker, Palpatine lived, and that totally invalidated Vader's redemption.
What's another really weird thing that happened with 9? So in the beginning of the credits crawl, the very first thing that is like mentioned in the credits crawl for episode 9 is like Palpatine's voice has been heard or something like that, or like Palpatine has spoken, something to that effect. And that is not referencing something that happened in a movie. That's not referencing something that happened in a movie. It is referencing a marketing event that happened in Fortnite.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a pull for a movie. I don't want to be that old man who's sitting out here being like, Fortnite or whatnot. But that's weird. That's a weird way to go about like contenizing the events of your like cinematic universe. Is like what? Why is the credits like crawl in the beginning making reference to like a Fortnite season? Like that's.
It makes no sense. Literally, no sense.
I other than just like, hi kids, like we're cool or whatnot. I don't know. I don't dig that. Like,
hi kids, do you like violence?
Yeah, like kids are smart. Kids are smart, and I think time and time again have demonstrated that young audiences can really appreciate like high fantasy, decent trope, like not tropeized, like original, like sci-fi fantasy or whatnot. Kids like stories. Sure, they can't be like super duper overly complex, like Iliadic ballads and all kinds of stuff just because of their attention span. But you don't have to be like, oh, Fortnite, like floss in order to get like a bunch of kids showing up or whatnot. So that
the redeeming qualities of 9, Kylo Ren's redemption. I thought that was really well done. I thought
Kylo was consistently good across the entire sequel trilogy.
He was troubled. That's the best way to put it.
Hey, Wire Gamer, welcome back to the not hospital world. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah.
I thought Kylo's great. The entire his introduction is like solid. He seems to be one of the only people pursuing his goal in earnest. the entire time. His motivations are consistent. Um, at no point does he do something that is dumb. He's like a little angry and like impulsive and like destroy stuff, but at no point does he like have clouded judgment
Can we
or
openly admit that Ray is a Mary Sue? And for the term, for people who don't know what Mary Sue means, it means over the top, overpowered to the point where nothing can stop her.
she's a character without flaws. That's really like the main
She
complaint.
has plot armor.
Yeah. I don't know. I it feels like here's the problem, and Killjoy touched on this. There's so many people out there calling Ray and Mary Sue who are people that I couldn't I hate them. You know what I mean? It's just like they're super duper anti-feministy dudes who feel
I would give it.
like this whole sort of thing, and a lot of like hatred got leveled at Ray that I just feel is like completely unearned, considering like
Yeah,
the franchise is trying to introduce a new character. All right,
but,
like
yes, but I would give an explanation as to why I think that, not for like the attack.
She does have a lot of plot armor. That's the problem. And here's the thing. My biggest complaint with Ray isn't necessarily that she's overpowered, because she is overpowered and whatnot, but they came so close so many times to like really contextualizing why she was so gifted in the Force. They came close so many times to like really contextualizing why she was so good at a lot of these things or whatnot, and we just never really got to see it. In the novelization of the books, they talk a lot about, particularly there's this like really cool scene where it describes where Kylo is like interrogating her in episode 7. He's like got her captured, and he's like going into her brain and whatnot and all this sort of stuff. And he talks about like when he's like in there, he finds this gigantic wall. And he pushes through it and opens it, and on the other side, it's just like raw force power. And then at that point, she's able to turn against him, and she's able to resist his force invasion. So that's a wildly cool sort of like thing. Like, why didn't we explore like, oh my god, it was like she had her memory selectively altered to like the sort of thing, or like, oh, there was a genetic predisposition or whatnot. But like,
right,
we didn't get any of that.
I don't hate Ray. Like, I don't think the character's bad.
No, yeah, definitely deserved a lot more fleshing. In fact, I want to know more about Ray. That's my gripe. Right. Yeah, I like Ray. I want to know more about her. I just feel like I wasn't given that much. I was just kind of, she's very strong, she's very talented, she's very good, and
you have to wait until episode 9 to find out why she's so strong with the Force.
Right.
Which they could have explained.
And even then, just she's a Palpatine. I mean, that's
okay. That explains a lot. Why didn't you tell us that sooner?
That's a step in the right direction, but I feel like that is a very limited explanation very late in the game.
Cop-out answer?
Well, yeah, because you have to watch 3 movies of her doing all this amazing stuff, and then at the very end, it's kind of like, because she was Palpatine. And I know that's because we switched directors a bunch of times, and, ultimately I think they would have gotten the chance to play that out in episode. I imagine if we got JJ, that you would have seen probably the Palpatine reveal happen in episode 8, and then we would have had all of episode 9 to just play out the Rey versus Kylo thing.
Actually, now that I think about it, going back to episode 8, you know what really made me angry and a waste of a character? Snoke.
Yeah.
Build up in 7, and then 8, he just gets offed. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's it?
I mean, I guess it was nice because obviously they needed to make room for Palpatine.
Right, but I think Snoke would have been better. Just let I'm not getting into that.
There's another one. Like, who's Snoke?
Right. No explanation whatsoever.
He's the first alien of his race ever introduced in the series. We know nothing about his backstory, other than the fact that he assumes the highest command in a largely human imperium, which apparently is known for its xenophobe, which is like a very the First Order is like very Nazi. They're like very xenophobic. Here's this alien who's just in charge of them. I don't know.
Well, I actually read a couple comics that takes place during Rise of Skywalker that explains everything from Palpatine's perspective.
Right.
And yeah, Snoke's just a test tube baby that was made by Palpatine as a puppet.
Yeah, great. Cool. That's awesome. Where
Why
is
didn't
that
we-
in the film?
I just think that like the sequel trilogy, I think could have been written better. I think that's the only issue. Is
Yeah.
it was poorly written.
A lot of lost opportunities. It just for me, it's so hard to ingest all the lost opportunities. You know,
Missed opportunities, too many plot holes,
because
too many
I
missed
feel like they
opportunities.
went
Yeah.
in earnest. They like I feel like they're what began in like an earnest attempt to like modernize Star Wars. To like, okay, we're gonna bring in some some like minority actors. We're going to you know. We're gonna give like women a larger, very central role in this franchise. And all
Which
of
I'm
this
all
sort of stuff.
for.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the EU was a decade ahead of them. They had already been taking these characters and putting them up on pedestals
Right.
for a while. So obviously, there was this huge precedent and this huge amount of like proof, objectively, that there are a subsect of Star Wars fans that were ready for this. Obviously,
Exactly.
there were a very large subsect of Star Wars fans that were horrified by this, but I'm a little less inclined to like value the opinion of people who are just like, I don't want women and minorities in my movies.
I think I
know?
think what it should be, like, the best way to look at this is, I think, like, when it comes to the sequel trilogy, it was a missed opportunity that could introduce a new generation of characters as the old characters are passing the torch on to the new generations. It's kind of like a passing of the torch type story that can increase
They got close, They
got
got
close, yeah.
some of the characters there. Um,
But the problem
Poe
with
was
stories like
great.
that,
Kylo was great. Poe was great.
right? The downside about it is, though, in that is the way they executed was basically undermined it and basically kind of like kicked them off the stage, like get off the stage.
Well,
You're not wanted anymore.
it feels like they gave us, like the most simplified version of it.
Yeah.
AK pointed it out, I think, very correctly. It's just like it just didn't seem like there was a lot of direction. They were just like rapidly checking boxes as fast as they could.
Right.
And changing directors. This gets down to it. I think the largest single biggest, most glaring problem with the sequel trilogy is the fact that they swapped directors twice.
Yep. I think
That's it. I mean, even if we had gotten 3 Rian Johnsons, then I feel like that would have been better than JJ Ryan JJ, and preferably it would have been 3 JJs.
I liked episode 7. I thought,
we agreed that was the best of the sequel trilogy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It set off a good example. I like what they did with Harrison Ford's Han Solo. I like how they portrayed the entire movie. Very well done. It was like, sure, it felt like a rehash of A New Hope, but it was still.
That's really the only complaint you can level with that movie. There's a few scenes in episode 7 that are stunning. I mean, I remember. One of the coolest parts I remember in episode 7, the part of the movie that really sticks out for me, is like they're at that planet with like Roz, I think her name is, the little alien with the big glasses who has the crush on Chewie. For starters, she's a great character and very Star Wars. She was a phenomenal addition to the franchise, I think. Anyway,
I agree.
We're at that whole thing. I love the hub that she's in. I love the color. I love kind of like the West Asian accents that they put all over that planet. Like, really cool design. It turns out Star Wars has never lapsed on any of its visual design. And I will say that the visual, like just like background worlds, costuming, continuity, like appearance, general like visuals of the sequel trilogy, I think were spot on. It was really just storytelling.
I like the twist that they had in Force Awakened. I loved that they you think that Finn is the Force user and all that stuff because he's got the lightsaber and yada yada yada.
Right.
And then the transition between that to Rey was even better. Like, especially when they were doing
It was a
the.
really good movie to set up
It
Rey.
was.
It did a great job, like introducing, like, here's this girl, here's her journey. She's very conflicted. She's got a lot going
Right.
on. She does not understand what's happening, all this sort of stuff. And all of a sudden, it's like, yes, we are clicking into place. And then, we didn't really get, we had to wait like a whole movie and a half to then get answers to the questions that we basically had.
Well, this is exactly it. Like, 7 felt that, like, all right, the revitalized of Star Wars. Here we go. We're ready for another adventure. This is great. And then 8 come out, and you're like, and they dropped the ball.
Well, yeah, because they got a new director who's like, nope, I'm taking it this way. And then they had to overcorrect, and, they just never got it back on track. So that sucks. The scene I was thinking of was that scene where, the First Order's like coming into that planet or whatnot, and then like super low altitude over that lake, you get the first snippet of like the new like High Republic X-Wings.
Yeah, that was
and they're just
badass.
like zipping in like at Mach, just like coming in, and you're like, oh fuck, they look so good. I
and then
remember
you just see the wings like separate, and you're like, "Oh, they fucked."
and it's like, oh yes, we get like the High Republic's been building X-wings, and they're like newer and cooler and better.
Yeah. This is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and then you get to see a bunch of fucking X-wings fight, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot these things are like full blown fighter jets.
That movie, I felt satisfied after watching Force Awakens. It was good.
I remember feeling a little bummed that it was like, okay, I just saw the Death Star get blown up for a third time, but it is a Star Wars movie, and I do feel like that's in, like I signed up for that, okay?
Yeah, it's a planet size.
I didn't feel deceived. I felt like, I got to see the new characters. I walked out. I think satisfied would be a good way to do it. I wasn't enthralled with Episode 7, but I was definitely like, wow, okay, we've got a great launching off platform to go for here. And then unfortunately they had to change directors twice and had a bunch of like creative vitriol, all over the place.
I cried in 7. I'm not gonna lie. When Harrison Ford, I cried. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a really compelling scene.
Yeah, that betrayal where you're just like, no! And you just see Chewie just go off the tangent. And I'm like, that's right. Hit him good. Perfect scene.
Yeah,
moving on.
Here's a weird question, because AK brought this up. And there's also, because this is, and I think this is the question of the day, and it's something Killjoy asked earlier. First off, do you consider yourself an active member of the Star Wars community?
Yeah.
See, this is gonna step into the answer to the following question. I don't really, because I find that community very difficult to engage with, to be perfectly honest. People who consider themselves gigantic Star Wars fans, I find them hard to engage with.
I am on the fence because I like Star Wars a lot, much like how Rich and Garrett likes it.
Star Wars.
Love Star Wars. I also love Star Trek too. Like,
you know what? I unironically really like what they've done with Rick and Morty. I typically don't talk with people about Rick and Morty because
I don't care for it.
It's just like, it's one of those things where it's like suddenly there's all these dimensions to, like, now that everything has like moved online, and there's all these international phenoms that have taken like movies across a zillion different cultural contexts. Suddenly you have to deal with everybody's personal baggage when you talk about a well-beloved franchise. And whether or not that be overt misogyny, overt racism, or like any one of 1,000 opinions, some of which are very permissible and very reasonable, and some of which are not completely unrooted in anything other than just abject hatred, it's hard to reconcile with that community because whatever they feel very strongly. Now, Killjoy asked an important question about, sort of like, why do you have a theory about why it's so engraved with hatred and toxicity? This is such an important question because this is the experience of being somebody who's like a fan of something in like the modern day. Is especially something that's a really big phenomenon. Back when, like when Star Wars first came out, like the internet communities didn't exist. There weren't like ways, like there were local clubs and you had local people, but you were generally talking with people in your area, people that you kind of already may have known or, would have had the opportunity to know anyway
Hmm.
about the franchise. But now, things have taken on this bigger context and you deal with these big international communities that span a bunch of cultures and a bunch of expectations and all that.
The problem that I have with communities when it comes to franchises or fandom, if you will, has nothing to do with people enjoying it. It's the negativity that thrives
Right.
in these fandoms.
We say after we just got done spending a half hour absolutely tearing into the sequel
Right.
trilogy.
Well,
But
our reasoning
again,
is
yeah,
just our opinion.
we have, and that's the thing is like discussions like that where you're talking about character opportunities and whatnot.
Right.
That's fine. I think it's important to talk about that sort of stuff. And like all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I get you, Killjoy. Like that was not cool.
Yeah,
I
and,
don't
and and
condone.
and it turns out a grave harbinger of basically a successor of shitty things that Star Wars fans would continue to do for the people in their movies for a long time. I
Well,
think,
look what happened to the Rose
yeah,
incident
she
that
was
took
talking about
place in.
Rose. Yeah, like Rose. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, her role was diminished. It was gone, whatnot. I think they really diminished Finn's role in the latter part of the franchise because
Right.
having a
Like
African American lead wasn't testing well with Chinese audiences, and like
this
it's
is it's the problem with modern cinema. It's you can't please everybody, and when you try to, somebody else is going to bitch and complain.
yeah, the internet and the ability for like large numbers of fans to assemble in really overwhelming numbers online and just sort of like mob their way at sort of like the machine that like the movie machine. It
Right.
has proven a troubling development for a lot of instances. Now, granted, there's some good things that are coming out of it too. I mean, I feel like not to get into a grim topic, but like it turns out there's a lot of fucked up shit going on in Hollywood. Turns out, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay, turns out
Well,
there's
that's the thing.
yeah, it turns out there's
Um,
a lot of bad shit going on in Hollywood, and having like just a huge mass of people keeping, attempting in any
God,
respect to hold people accountable for that has ultimately produced some positive change. But there's also the problem that now it's sort of like there's so many other instances of people taking mob rule in this really grim direction and just like harassing the shit out of people that they felt they were justified in doing in one way or another. And it's not a Star Wars only problem, but it is a Star Wars problem for sure in the idea of that whole sort of thing.
I get the hate. I get the understandment of basically the direction that the sequel trilogy went.
Yeah, being dissatisfied with movies is a
Yeah.
reasonable way to feel.
Right.
That is a reasonable way to feel. Because
Should people go out of their way to make these actors' lives a living nightmare? No.
well, yeah, because it becomes a hate crime at that point.
Exactly. It does. It
And as a
literally
rule
does.
of thumb, hey, everybody in chat, quick pro tip: don't commit hate crimes. Just as a rule
Agreed.
of thumb. Just as a rule of thumb, real quick, don't commit hate crimes.
It's okay to dislike something, and it's also even better if you respect other people's opinions in regards to liking or disliking something.
Right, yeah. It's all that sort of stuff. And like if Star Wars had overtly problematic tones where it was like no like Star Wars is doing something that's like really regressive and all that sort of stuff and people were mad about
Yeah.
it, I would feel differently. But that was not the case. It was kind of
No.
the opposite. Star Wars was doing kind of a mixed, very disorganized job of attempting to be progressive and while there definitely were a reasonable subset of people that were upset about kind of how that was executed, it seemed like there was a much louder sort of. And here's the thing: is it's like you know when you're dealing with like really intense hatred like that, are you dealing with a
Yeah.
vocal minority? Are you dealing with just a very militant small group of people? Or are you dealing with an apathetic large group of people? So
We could
or both.
scream at the new trilogy
I was
till
gonna
we're
say,
blue in the mouth. Let's move on.
well, no, yeah, I want to. This is, I mean, this is kind of the modern, sort of experience with being a Star Wars fan. To answer your question directly, Killjoy, I think every single issue with the Star Wars fandom comes down to gatekeeping at the end of the day.
Yep.
I think it's probably the most gate kept fandom on Earth. Period. Like hard stop, kind of thing. I think there is a I think Star Wars cultural context, back, many, many decades ago, was one where it was a huge victory in sort of like, kind of how, like comic books have all of a sudden saw this insane, rise in legit. And guess what? We have a lot of the same problems with the Marvel movies, as far as like people being shitty about, people who are in them. And I think it comes out of that same exact thing, and the idea of like, here was this very this fandom that was composed a lot of people who were didn't feel like conventionally popular in society, or didn't feel like they were somebody who are like conventional trend followers, nerds, if you will. They were big nerds.
I think we all are big nerds.
They were big nerds, and we're big nerds. But this is, like, in order to give credence to this idea, I think, like 50 years ago, that was something a little bit different. Now it's, a little bit more of a preference, whereas, like, you don't have to go that back far in time, where it's like, if you really, really like Star Wars, like, really liked comic books, like, that was something that you, like, caught flack for,
Garrett, I think I'm going to channel my inner Richie right about now, but to all the Hollywood people out there, producers and that, stop making reboots of franchises. Every reboot you guys have done have been terrible.
Right.
We don't want them.
Yeah. So you've got this insane level of gatekeeping present. And this idea that, like, there's a lot of people that kind of came to this franchise and really developed a huge following and a huge love for this franchise based on the fact that I like this, other people like me like it, and girls don't like it, and, all of a sudden it became this, like, very much, like, white minority nerd, sort of, like, cult following, and like for years and years and years and years, conventions, movies, subsequent releases, huge sort of things. I mean, this community of people like propped Star Wars, the success of Star Wars up in a big way. Obviously, Star Wars had a lot of mainstream appeal with other people, but and like, around the world, like people loved Star Wars, but there was this group of people who really took to Star Wars and took it to like the insane convention level and built a lot of the convention culture that we experience today, which that in of itself, not at all a bad thing. Not at all a bad thing in of itself. But I think that that created two huge problems, which is I think the problems that the Star Wars has yet to figure out how to deal with, because it's with Star Wars and Marvel are like unique in the idea that they're even famous enough to even have this problem to consider. But Star Wars, the amount of time between original trilogy, prequel trilogy, and sequel trilogy, I mean, like, decades passed in between the release of these movies, which meant it was 10 years for people to reimagine how they remembered the movies that came before, and also for them to formulate deep, intrinsic mental imagery associated with what they would like to see happen next.
Right.
And because a lot of those people felt like they had stood by that franchise or had built a big identity around that franchise or saw that franchise as a big saving grace of their group or their, like nerd culture in a big way, I think led to, them feeling really justified in blocking out when people who weren't like them coming in, to the franchise. Them seeing, oh, yeah, there's more girls coming in, or like, there's more minorities coming in, and all this sort of stuff. And like, I think you've seen this with video games, you've seen this with Marvel, you've seen this with this. I mean, pretty much every single like major fandom that's having like some sort of like huge social upheaval right now is generally because it caught on to mainstream appeal, and there were a very vocal group of like cult followers who were like, I don't like that there's different people in my like thing now, and I feel like it's ruined because it's not unique to my picture and my identity of it, and I'm really mad because I feel like I'm 30 years deep in my emotional investment, and now I feel like that's for nothing.
Did you read the statement that they were going on in regards to the direction they went with the sequel trilogy. There was like, yeah, we don't have any source materials and all our stuff and that to go
Yeah, I
by.
remember that, and me
What?
just being like,
Have you not read any of the novels or the comic books?
"Doc,
Like, hello?
there's so many books. There's so many
Right.
books and like a bunch of comics."
Hello? Were you living under the rock the last, I don't know, decade or two?
Right. So, yeah, and now we enter into what I think or what I fear is a really difficult situation for Star Wars to deal with, and that is the current exclusivity of the licensing. That's a
So far,
challenge.
Mandalorian has somewhat pumped new life into Star Wars.
I was going to say, Mandalorian needed to be an absolute knock it out of the park, home run, 10 out of 10 in order to like really instill like a huge amount of hope. And there was exactly one living human being on the planet who was capable of such a feat. His name is Dave Filoni.
Yep.
And the good news is that he fucking did it. That show is so good. It's an absolute 10 out of 10. It's the purest we've seen Star Wars in years, down to its little idiosyncrasies. I mean, it's some of the it's unbelievable that after like a few years of feeling like kind of getting used to this idea that like maybe the Star Wars you know and love is a thing of the past, and it's just something that maybe won't exist anymore, and that like it's okay, I'll go back to the source materials. That's then, this is now, and kind of having that conversation with yourself, and then all of a sudden, some absolutely legendary batter, the dude who's been deadlifting, sort of like the animated series and like a lot of the cool little gems or whatnot, suddenly gets a real big boy budget and produces 2 seasons of a going on 3 seasons of a show that encapsulates and expands on even the originality of what made Star Wars charming in the beginning. And it's like, yes! That! Yes, that!
Is it wrong that I think that Mandalorian's the sequel to Return of the Jedi?
Well, it is. I mean, now.
No. What I mean is the extended trilogy doesn't exist.
Well,
it's
there's been this rumor going around that the Rey trilogy will be taken out of canon and like put into its own like alternate universe, where it's like, oh yeah, well, when there's like where it's like, oh, when the Empire turns into the First Order in this alternate universe, and then this trilogy happens, and then in this other universe, what happens is, the original trilogy, and then the events of Mandalorian, and then a new trilogy that is presumptively going to involve Dave Filoni and George Lucas.
Yay!
And it's like, and I think that's cool, because like one day I will have children, and I do intend on showing them the sequel trilogy, because I think it's very palatable for for a child, all that sort of stuff.
Great.
But we get a trilogy by the man that we want in charge, working with the original creator of the franchise, and we get to see kind of like the compounding of the storied success that, I mean, like, Mandalorian has proved. Mandalorian's victory is so good because like it's proved once again that like old kooky ass Star Wars has a tremendous amount of mainstream appeal.
Yeah.
Like everybody shut up. Like it's there. Like they did it. And you know what? Like Mandalorian, tons of compelling female characters in dynamic, meaningful roles.
Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah. Cara Dune. I know the actress, had that controversy or whatnot, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the character. Cara Dune was marvelously executed. And Bo-Katan and like, that whole squad.
Boba Fett coming back was awesome
Boba
too.
Fett, Fennec, like everybody was sick. The galaxy felt diverse. It felt lived in. It felt imperfect again. There were like they weren't overly drawing attention. It was just real deal, like Star Wars, dog. It was exactly. Um,
By the way, the Bad Batch
yeah,
that would just recently came out.
I haven't.
It's essentially Star Wars version of Red versus Blue.
Yeah, I know because it's by
Genius.
it's by Rooster Teeth, isn't it? Or like Rooster
I
Teeth
think
is
so.
involved in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so genius.
Oh, it's
I think my favorite.
it's exactly what the doctor ordered as far as like
Yeah, it's like Order 66. What's this? I don't know. I just constantly get this repeating on my radio.
yeah,
Me too.
yeah, like yeah, what the like oh okay cool. We're just gonna skip the biggest plot point of the Clone Wars because we're the Bad Batch. Like just
the leader of them was like, I'm gonna go talk to the superior and find out what this Order 66 is, and I'm like, this is genius. You don't find good comedy like that.
Right. AK, you should see The Mandalorian, dog. Like,
oh man, you know what? I'm almost tempted to stream that later for him.
Yeah, we'll help you. Dog, if you need a Disney Plus login, I will give you my Disney Plus login. Okay, like message me. It's the best Star Wars has been in years, and it's a real deal love letter back to the original trilogy. It is.
Great.
It was made by a whole bunch of people like you and me, in the sense that we have a genuine love for maintaining Star Wars, not like as it could be, but like as it was, with meaningful modern twists without at all like making major alterations to the story. But unlike you and me, these were people with big Hollywood budgets and really extensive talent, as far as like practical effects are concerned. They go back to practical and a whole bunch of stuff. The set design's amazing. Yeah, it's just great.
It was visually stunning. Like the entire thing about Mandalorian is just flawless.
Yeah, it just melts away. All this sort of stuff. I can't do a lot of TV. I don't have the attention for it. Like, man, I crushed Mando. It was great.
It's like Rogue One. That movie was also amazing.
Rogue One was also pretty good. And weirdly, Vladimirovich pointed this out earlier, how it was like, it's very weird because Rogue One had this like super diverse cast that I don't remember anybody being upset that Donnie Yen was in it. And is that just because Donnie Yen's fucking Donnie Yen, and you don't
King Yen?
Yeah. When it comes out on DVD, Blu-ray.
Good luck.
That's never gonna happen.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe when it's done.
Well, Mandalorian season 1 is done, so
and
I think
2.
by the time
we're going on season 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the moment season 3 I think comes out, they may be releasing season 1. I don't know.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Who knows?
Let's see here. Rogue One. Yeah. What's there not to say about that movie that was bad?
Rogue One was very fascinating because they didn't even try to pretend that it wasn't just a World War II movie reskinned in Star Wars. And you know what? Great.
Yep.
Great. I think so. Here's the thing about Rogue One. Not only does it have everybody knows that it's got the Vader scene at the end, okay? And we know that the Vader scene was fucking wild. All right, it was absolutely crazy. To see. There's lots of moments in the franchise where you get an opportunity to see, Jedi versus Jedi, or like, people like, and then if a non-Force sensitive person is fighting a Jedi, they're generally speaking a super duper elite or very powerful or important person in the world that's fighting that Jedi. It's, like Boba Fett, for instance. Boba Fett, squares off against some Force sensitives and whatnot. It's like Boba Fett is maybe the most dangerous non-Force sensitive person in the galaxy. Like, okay, he's gonna hold his own. All right, yeah, the full-blown Mandalorian warrior race. It goes, to toe with these people. But we had never really seen, outside of stormtroopers just dying in droves, kind of thanklessly, We hadn't
Yeah.
really seen a very humanized perspective on what it was like for like a squadron of soldiers to go against a Force sensitive. And we got our answer. And apparently, it's a slaughter. It's not close. You get a band of well-trained rebellion soldiers in a choke point, guns drawn on an enemy that has no cover, and it's a slaughter. Like even in a clear state of advantage. I mean, it's like
Yep.
they will not pull through. Vader is a space wizard, and he cannot be reasoned with, or,
Well, he
nor
can
can
be
you.
to a degree.
That is true, but he wasn't in the talking mood during that particular sequence.
No.
And yeah, he mowed down an entire starship worth of dudes, and it was really cool after like, for some people, I think there were some semi-valid criticisms about Hayden Christensen kind of Hayden Christensen's, particularly his episode 2 performance, but some of that kind of cascaded into his episode 3 performance, just kind of portraying a little bit of a whiny Vader, somebody who's a little whiny. It wasn't terrible. They cinched that shit in 3 in a bit, but it was still a little bit like, oh man, there's a wife, she died, huh? Like there was definitely a little bit of this.
Well, can you blame him? This probably took place like what, a couple months after 3, or a year or so, or whatnot.
He was quite a bit older in 2.
No, wait,
than
no,
he was in
sorry.
3.
In Rogue One, takes place like just before A New Hope. So
Oh,
as soon as
no. Yeah, my point is that I think a lot of people were feeling a little uneasy about like where they left Vader at the end of 3, because it was just kind of like, well, the rest of the franchise, he's this absolutely stone cold murderer until his redemption at the very, very end, where he chooses, to step off it. But there was just this big gap between like, this tortured, very emotionally raw young man that was put into the Vader suit, and then literally blip next episode, the stalwart, stone cold murderer of a commander that was, sort of like Lord Darth Vader. And then Rogue One, in one scene, bridged that gap.
Yep.
Yeah, which is like, oh, nope, it's real, and it's right there. But so we all know that scene is really, really good. I like something else that I like about Rogue One that you may also weigh in on is I like that they portray the rebellion as like maybe not all the time being the best dudes.
They were scrambled. They were desperate.
Yeah, and they were very willing to hurt innocent people because they saw it as like a means to an end. Particularly like Saul Guerrera, but also what's his bucket in the beginning, like that one dude who's like supposed to be the most important character in Rogue One that no one remembers because he has like the weakest performance. But yeah, I mean, there's moments where like like a rogue, a rebel agent executes his his Imperial informant in cold blood because he's afraid he's going to narc on him. Saul Guerrera like kills a bunch of people pretty ruthlessly, in order to, because it's all this in the idea of like destroy the Empire. Any amount of lives is worth not living in tyranny. Da 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 da. I really like the fact that they added that element to the rebellion, where it was like, especially in the beginning of the rebellion, like right when the Empire was forming, it was not organized. And you had a lot of sort of like splinter groups that were doing like full blown terrorist stuff, before Mon Mothma was able to like rally all the flags and get them under a central banner and all kinds of stuff. There was this very, very real, raw imperfection to the rebellion. And I liked.
Sorry.
No, I liked that. I liked seeing that. That really has not been visited in any other movie.
Yeah, it wasn't until Mon Mothma and Leia that the rebellion showed compassion and was structured better.
Yeah, and like took the role of like objectively being the good guys, because before that it was like a bunch of disbanded terrorist cells, some of which had altruistic motives, some of which did not. And all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Vladimirovich pointing out, like, yeah, rebellions are supposed to be unorganized. I found the rebellion as it was presented in Rogue One to be deeply believable. It felt
Yeah,
disjointed, and it felt like at any moment a bunch of there was this general sense of like, God, if we don't handle this exactly right, all those dudes over there are gonna flip out and start shooting, and it doesn't matter if we're on the same side. Like, they are not gonna have it. Um, yeah, so troublesome. And then I think the last nice thing, great movie, all kinds of stuff.
you know what I liked? I loved the castle of Vader's castle.
Oh yeah, what that whole scene when he's like talking to director Krennic.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
and you're
entire scene
like,
was
oh
gold.
my God, Vader's so cool.
I just love how Vader just tears him apart, like
Yeah,
verbally, and you're just like, ooh.
you also gain a lot of respect for director Krennic at that point in time
Yeah,
because he's clearly terrified of the space wizard god that is like strode into command and is just like he's looking for like an attaboy, and Vader like definitely like cup checks him.
I
And like
love it. It's like,
knocks him down a notch and is like, "Don't you fucking get ambitious with me, idiot." You
yeah,
keep that in mind. That being said, good work. Go fire the Death Star. Like all that sort of stuff.
right.
And you could tell Krennic was like, he was ready for it. He knew that's how it was going to go. He knew Vader was a sadistic maniac. He had
This is where I'm gonna die.
he had exactly the mindset he needed to work with him.
Yeah.
Director
Well,
Krennic,
also,
phenomenal character, like from a like Empire perspective.
yeah.
He's exactly what you want in Empire leadership.
Well, that's also the thing too that I think a lot of people were kind of shocked at too, because that scene was very intense to the point where even he saw it on his face when he was, getting ridiculed and talked down to by Vader, going, "This is it. This is where I die."
Yeah, he was terrified the entire time, but he was
See
like
it.
keeping it together. Yeah, it was great acting. It was
Oh,
phenomenal.
genius.
And yeah, it was like that. There you go. Because you're familiar with the concept of indirect storytelling, correct?
Right.
Versus direct storytelling. For those of
Right.
you in the audience, I'm talking about direct storytelling is the things that a character does or the things that an author tells you about the character. Sort of like an author coming to you and describing like this is what they're like, blah 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 blah, and all this sort of stuff. Or a character speaking out and being like, this is what I'm like, or I'm showing you, all this sort of stuff. Indirect storytelling, way more interesting because one of the most cool elements of indirect storytelling that I find is how other characters respond to a character. You could say, like for instance, in like a Wild West movie, everybody's having a great time in the bar and all this sort of stuff, and all of a sudden the gates open and some dude in like black boots walks in and like locks eyes with somebody, and everybody goes quiet. You may not know who that dude is. You may not know what he's up to, but the fact that everybody in that room is scared means all of a sudden you're catching on. We're human beings. We're very social. We're designed to catch on to context clues like that. So sometimes the most important element in a story is how other characters are responding to that character. And
Yep.
everybody around Vader in Rogue One looks like they're about to pee their whole pants. That's great. That's exactly how that should be. Exactly. Show, don't tell. And it's this brilliantly written narrative, and I think
Especially after watching Rogue One, you go into A New Hope, and you see that one scene where I don't believe in your voodoo type thing, or he's talking about like the Force and that, and he starts force choking him, going, "I find your lack of faith disturbing."
Yeah, another prolific scene and whatnot.
Yeah,
and it like holds up. It's great. Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
There's one movie we haven't talked about.
Oh yeah, episode 4.
Well, no. Besides episode 4, we've talked about that. Bits and pieces of it.
Yeah,
We haven't
episode
talked
1.
about episode 1.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to say about Rogue One, and maybe you can weigh in on this, I think it has the best fleet battle in any Star Wars.
Oh, hands down.
Hands down. Like the Rebellion fleet at full strength fighting the Imperial, like the Imperial, like a multiple Star Wars or Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Trek, like full blown fleet.
There was only one movie that came close to that, and that was the last in Rise of the Skywalker. That was the only time that it actually came close to the Rogue One style.
You know what? I didn't like that one as much because it felt like all the or all the it just felt like the rebels were doing all this weird shit. The super cool Star Destroyers with Death Star lasers that they teased.
Didn't do anything.
They sat on a planet in orbit, and then they all fell out of the sky at one point. So I didn't love that. I liked it from a thematic perspective, obviously, but there was no, like... Whereas, like, when you're watching Rogue One, it feels like a World War II naval battle. You have people, like, talking, like, okay, we're maneuvering at this, like, catch the flank. And you could actually see... like what they're playing at. There's like very clearly this whole, this understanding that like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to come in. We're going to do this. We're going to dispatch this. Hammerheads are going to come in high. They're going to disable the start. Our Hail Mary worked, like exit strategy. Like, oh no, we got caught up. The fleet's got, it felt like, holy shit. That was like a real deal fight. That's like,
it was way stronger than the Return of the Jedi space battle.
Return of the Jedi space battle was obviously super duper dope. Like because it was so gigantic and it had like Venerators, Star Destroyers, and like the biggest fleet the Rebellion like had ever, and all that sort of stuff. But it was very static. It was just kind of two masses like colliding with each other and whatnot. Right. And then the Death Star just starts shooting, kind of thing. And then there's that cool scene where the A-wing like flies into the like perfectly into the Executor class, and it just kind of falls into the into the Death Star. That scene was cool, but it was kind of like I loved it at the time, but then all of a sudden you see Rogue One and you see like generals shouting orders, you see them treating it like completely unabashedly like a naval fleet battle.
Right,
there's no theatrics, there's no like weird crazy like happenstance like, ooh, this magic thing happened. It's full blown just like commanders making decisions, reconciling losses in real time with a mission, people keeping their cool in the face of total oblivion, and it was. I think it was the best like fleet scene that Star Wars has ever had.
Oh, Phantom Menace.
Yeah, let's wrap up this conversation with some Phantom Menace for sure.
We haven't even touched the extended universe.
We haven't.
And I don't think we are.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I don't have too much to weigh in on the extended universe, but we could talk about that after.
Yeah.
The Star Wars Episode 1.
I liked it. It was bittersweet. It was actually a really good story starter.
Star Wars Episode 1 was great, I think.
Yeah.
I watched it like 8 times in theaters. It was a really good memory for me because here's the thing, and this is a problem that a lot of Star Wars fans get into. You end up really loving the Star Wars that you saw and got to see as a kid because you were in fact a kid, kind of thing. Of course, Star Wars is going to hit different when you're 11 than when you're 30, kind of thing. And that's no fault of the people who are making it or whatnot. It's just you just don't see flaws in character in storytelling when you're 11 in the same way that you do when you're 30. And meanwhile, shiny, cool, like they're just Star Wars is built to be cooler in the mind of an 11-year-old than it is in the 30-year-old. So naturally, there's this reverse recency bias. And I think I cascade into that territory a little bit with Star Wars Episode 1. A little bit. But Star Wars Episode 1 did set the prequels off in a phenomenal direction, I think. Certainly.
The racing was good. The
pod racing scene was phenomenal.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean...
The music was amazing.
I think pound for pound, the best soundtrack in the entire franchise is Episode 1, and I do not think it's close.
Well, Empire Strikes Back was pretty good too.
It was great. It was good. It was awesome. It was at no point did Duel of the Fates play in Episode 5.
Duel of the Fates is what sold that thing.
I was gonna say, yeah, but I also liked the fact that there was like the kooky Naboo music, and they had all this cool, like there was just this incredible variety.
Now this is pod racing.
Now this is pod. That's the racing scene ripped so much ass. It was so good.
Yeah. Uh,
The Darth Maul lightsaber fight
oh,
has yet to be recreated.
that fight,
Ray Park is
that fight
all
was,
credit in the world to Ray Park.
yeah, that fight scene was just flawless.
They
Oh,
made this incredibly bold decision, like brave decision as a bunch of creators. Like huge hats off to Lucas, who took basically the most terrifying villain in their like in their whole thing. It's like, okay, Darth Maul, like the face of episode 1, like the bad guy that they're going to have to deal with. And they didn't even hire a trained actor. They hired a stuntman. Somebody who could really portray like Darth Maul's ferocious, terrifying fighting style. And then they just decided he wouldn't talk. Um and that's a good thing too, because Ray Park's acting would not have held up against, sort of like the real,
couple lines.
yeah, if he had spoken any more than a few times. And as a result, I mean, it's really good direction when you know how to utilize your team effectively. And that was a great example of them taking Ray Park, them putting him exactly in the position that he needed to be in order to do the best for the franchise, and then him delivering a fight scene that I don't know if there was. Is there like a like how many awards can we give that fight scene? It was truly one of the best. If
And
not,
you can truthfully say this much: he's the only person in all. I'm not sure. Okay, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that he's the only person in all of cinematography history to take on Liam Neeson and win.
yeah, Liam Neeson wins a lot, particularly in hand-to-hand combat situations.
Right.
He wins a lot.
Name one besides that one where he doesn't win.
Also, very stylized fight. Very
Yeah.
stylized, lots of flipping, lots of all this sort of stuff or whatnot. But interestingly enough, and maybe this is just me just speaking subjectively, it doesn't feel out of place in episode 1. It really does feel like the space wizards like going at each other. We haven't quite gotten into like mega backflip territory or like sort of stuff. It feels like a cool stylized fight, but it also feels like emotional and rooted and mean spirited and all that sort of stuff. It
Here's
just
a question
checks
for
the
you, Garrett.
boxes for me. Yeah,
From a martial arts standpoint,
yeah.
Darth Maul's fighting style was pretty spot on, wasn't it?
I mean, Darth Maul's weapon is deeply impractical from a martial
Obviously.
arts standpoint, and his fighting style is impossible to replicate because it literally assumes you have eyes in the back of your head.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like,
I was going to say,
bullets and
but
stuff.
if you were a force-sensitive person who had the ability to kind of like understand what was coming at you, kind of from the back end or whatnot, then it's perfect. Then it's exactly right. And I love that they like just tried to do that. Obviously, Ray Park was this tremendously talented martial artist. He's super, super good. And yeah, as far, I mean, like Darth Maul is more or less supposed to be like, he's not good at the Force. He does like one little Force push, kind of thing or whatnot, but he's like the antithesis of Palpatine in the idea that like Palpatine doesn't fight with a fucking lightsaber, except in episode 3 when he jumps around and does all his flipping or whatnot. He's clearly competent with a lightsaber, but
Yeah.
Mace Windu kicked the shit out of him with a lightsaber. And like, yeah, he had to be like a shitbag about it and be subversive in order to get out of the situation. Palpatine was not winning lightsaber fights against Jedi Masters.
No.
Meanwhile, he could force choke an entire city and like bring starships out of the sky if he wanted to. He was a force, like centered sort of individual. And then you have his apprentice as the total antithesis of that. Darth Maul had minimum force powers in the idea that he like one time he like took the force and used it to like throw something into a door in order to get it to open, and like a few other little things. But he was like probably the best lightsaber combatant, I mean, in the franchise, right? Outside of like maybe Obi-Wan.
That and maybe Dooku. I mean, Dooku was pretty good too.
Dooku was good. He did fight Obi-Wan and Anakin at the same time.
And beat both of them.
Right. And beat both of them and then lost second time specifically because
Plot.
I mean, well, yeah, because he needed to be dispatched, all this sort of stuff. And obviously, Darth Vader's like a very competent sword fighter as well, and built the whole fighting style based around protecting his like life support systems, and all that sort of stuff, which is fun. So there's obviously a lot of really good stuff. But I think like no force powers allowed, pound for pound, Maul takes them all.
So, Killjoy's question: Jedi or Sith?
Are you Jedi or Sith? Well, yeah. So.
Ultimately, neither.
I mean,
I'm with darkness on that one. I am total gray.
Well, yeah, because it depends. Are we going with the movie definition or like the more expanded universe definition of what constitutes Jedi versus Sith? Because
if we're going movie, I would go Sith. Sorry. I'm totally evil on the inside.
It's because the argument is supposed to come down to discipline versus passion, right? Do you act on logic or do you act on emotion? That is like logic, discipline, premeditation, calm. These are supposed to be the prevailing like tenets of what a Jedi acts on. Meanwhile, the Sith is supposed to act on impulse, anger. But even then, once you get into the pieces of like like the Old Republic where you had, like fully light side Sith who were just like following their hearts, they had no discipline or whatnot. They were just they were just they were acting on passion. They just happened to be like altruistic people that like wanted to do good in the world, but they had no structure for how to do it. They did not consult like an ideology that was greater than sort of like what they saw before him, and they just impulsively helped people. Then guess what, you're a Sith.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, but everybody in chat and we know, guarantee 9 times out of 10 they're going to be mostly Sith because nobody has that discipline that the Jedi have. Nobody.
I mean,
even most martial artists.
I was going to say, I did martial arts for 20 years. I think I'm very disciplined, but I mean, like that is also kind of the.
Can you become a robot? Because that's basically what a Jedi is, robot.
Yeah, but how many Jedi do you actually see that are robots? Like, really?
Within reason, though, in that? Technically speaking, not.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how many characters of the actual Jedi Order do you see that are like this and whatnot? Which, then you get into the situation of like, yeah, well, it's like a tenet to be achieved, that whole sort of thing. The closest you get is Yoda. Yoda's really the one dude walking the walk out there. That and Qui-Gon was also like a really good example of that, which is ironic because I believe like the implication was that he was a gray Jedi.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
You could clearly say it because he always went against the council, but
yeah,
he always stayed true to the code.
He also had like no interest in joining the council, kind of thing. It seemed like he was just like, I am extremely happy to do precisely what I am doing. But yeah, and it was just like, so this sort of things. Council isn't red all the time, blah blah blah, all sort of stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I try to fall more on the the side of the Jedi side of the spectrum. I try to, as much as I think the Jedi do, but I think the most interesting part of that dynamic to me is the the fact that particularly some of the extended universe stuff introduced to the idea of like dark side Jedi and light side Sith, which kind of take on this dimension of like lawful evil and chaotic good, which all of a sudden you fit into this like this 9x9 grid of like force morality, and that's always kind of fun.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, if we went that direction, then yeah, most of us would be gray Jedis because let's face it, as much as I want to give into it,
generally speaking, I was going to say human beings of the more normal variety tend to avoid extreme outcomes. I mean, that's just a fact,
Right.
generally speaking, like people like you and I venture to say most of the people in chat are not looking to make like really extreme radical assertions about the world or about the nature of truth or about life or stuff like that, as are most people. Most people are aware of the fact that they are morally gray and that things are ambiguous and, they won't put a hard pin in too much.
Right.
Bye, Darkness. Thanks for joining us. Um, but so as a result, yeah, we end up on some version of Gray Jedi where it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm guided by my emotion in many instances, and then like I also have an internal code of right and wrong which I adhere to, kind of thing. It's like, oh, there's this one all sort of thing. So yeah, all of us
Yeah.
are gray. By Star Wars rules, it means that our powers are stunted unless we're very, very cool about it.
Right.
But because you're kind of supposed to feed into one or the other in order to get good returns. But um, obviously, there's some people who have subverted that. Their names are Qui-Gon Jinn and Ahsoka Tano. And many, many more in the extended universe, but
Revan being the main one that everyone's
the operative party hopper, yeah.
Yeah. I don't like being a Jedi. I'm going to go to the Sith.
Because
Revan
was, yeah, okay, yeah, now we're into Old Republic. And Revan was, for context, everybody, Revan was featured, is kind of the main focus point of all of the Old Republic stuff. Any of the official games or the MMO or whatnot is about either one, directly about Darth, well, at some points he is Revan, and at some points he is Darth Revan. And there's several of the games about what happens to Revan, and then there's several other games which are just about what happens after Revan does what he does, kind of thing, because it fundamentally reshapes the galaxy. And Revan was a Jedi apprentice, correct?
Yeah.
He was a Jedi apprentice.
He became a Jedi. I think he became a Jedi Master at one point.
Okay, so he was a Jedi. He had fully gone, sort of like into the Jedi realm of things or whatnot, and he was among the first high-profile Jedi to fall to the dark side, correct?
I am looking this up.
Yeah. Okay. This is me guessing, but I believe he was one of the first high-profile Jedi to fall to the dark side, and he joined forces. And this was because of the events of a battle on Mandalore, which is up until the show The Mandalorian really hadn't had any mention in the modern canon. But the events of a very, very bloody siege on Mandalore. Mandalore gets blown up and glassed over a lot in the canon. It's the home of a warrior race who have a predisposition for pissing off whoever the authority is in the galaxy. And the events of that basically prompt him to turn to the dark side, and he joins forces with this other dude named Darth Malak. Darth Revan and Darth Malak begin to carve a terrifying cascade of destruction across the galaxy, and as Revan seeks to bring balance to the Force in a way that he feels the Jedi were disrupting. Eventually, unable to defeat him, I believe a Jedi tricks him into losing his memory. Or it tricks him into a situation where he loses his memory. And then, after he loses his memory, they were, like, gonna turn him back into a Jedi and all that sort of stuff. But that situation, like, went awry. And he ended up kind of off on his own and with the opportunity to choose whether or not he was going to return to the Sith or return to the Jedi. And he essentially did neither at that point. He did end up being a good actor in the galaxy at that point after the fact. He wasn't like sieging planets, and I think he did turn around and kill the fuck out of most of the Sith that he was helping. But anyway, long and the short of it, the super powerful Jedi flopped sides a whole bunch of times, and in the process took out most of the leadership on the Jedi side and then most of the leadership on the Sith side. And then after this tumultuous life was lived, he pieced out to a forgotten corner of the galaxy, never to be heard from again. So,
Well,
that
apparently his spirit was split in two at some point.
right, yeah, there was that.
Two forms: the light side of Revan and the dark side of Revan. So there was two Revans, both on each side. It was very
Right. We
messed
were
up.
hoping to see maybe some reference to Revan when in the most recent Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, because a lot of the Force ghosts come back, and we were maybe hoping that they would pay homage to that. But again, that's a faint, distant hope that is not terribly realistic. So
Any recommendations for Star Wars for people?
yeah, so I saw Killjoy talking in chat about how they haven't seen Rogue One.
Definitely watch that.
Yeah.
If you're into playing games, Knights of the Old Republic.
I will say this. Jedi Fallen Order is a good video game.
Yes.
It's a good video game. Yeah, I was going to say, I know that it gets kind of lumped in with a lot of the games, the Star Wars games that came out recently. As far as like, obviously we've gotten a lot of Battlefronts. We haven't gotten a lot, from EA as far as like major Star Wars releases and whatnot. But like, we did get Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and that game rules. All right.
Oh
like, yeah. That game's amazing. It's like a like a Star Wars Souls-like. I hate calling things Souls-like, but it's a Souls-like. It's a Star Wars Souls-like with like like a lot of the lightsaber combat that we really loved from like Jedi Academy and all that sort of stuff, brought to high fidelity in a beautiful engine, with a cast of super duper original characters that land pretty well. Almost every single person is their own distinct guy and whatnot, and I think the characters are very well fleshed out, very good. As far as video games are concerned, that one gets overlooked a lot, I think, because it gets wrapped up in like the EA era of things, but I think there's far more Star Wars fans out there that could be playing and enjoying Jedi Fallen Order. So
yeah, if you like a story based around your character, that is easily probably a lot of fun, I would highly recommend Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's a free-to-play MMO, and let's face it, it's story-driven, and it grabs you and goes, "Hey, let's go on a magical adventure."
Yeah,
Focusing
it's
on
a
you.
completely free game. It's a little dated at this point, and there are some, sort of like kind of quirky, idiotic things that are behind a paywall. But if you are just looking to hunker down for a largely single-player experience, believe it or not, the free missions in the MMO deliver.
Yeah.
They're great. Like, and you can play as the dark side. There's 8 storylines in that game.
Yeah. No, there's
my other 4 off screen.
there is, like, if you're playing the light side, you have a choice of trooper or soldier, if you will, smuggler, and Jedi.
Yeah, both sides have like force-sensitive options and non-force-sensitive options, which is cool. I mean, that was not the case with any of the previous entries into the Old Republic series. I do feel that the game really does, especially at the end, really end up being about force-sensitive. So,
well, yeah, but it's like you get 2 Jedi classes. You get either the consular or the Jedi Knight, if you will. And then you get your trooper and then the smuggler. And then for the Imperial side, you get the Marauder and the Inquisitor. And then you get the bounty.
They don't know what these things are.
Well, you get one that basically is dual lightsabers or single lightsaber or the light staff kind of deal.
You get Smashy Sith. You get Whirlwind Sith. You get Sneaky Sith, or you get Lightning Sith.
Yeah. You get bounty hunters, so you can play Mandalorians.
Yeah, you get flamethrower bounty hunter, or you get two pistols bounty hunter. Like all this sort of stuff. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
As far as like non-video game recommendations go, if you haven't seen if you consider yourself a Star Wars fan, I'm just gonna say this outright. If you consider yourself a Star Wars fan, if you're somebody who has sit down and enjoyed a Star Wars movie, particularly if you've enjoyed the original trilogy in your life, and you haven't watched The Mandalorian, just know that some of the greatest Star Wars that has ever been written or put to film is right there, waiting for you. And if you need help watching it, hit me up. I will help you.
I'll help too.
Yeah, hit one of us up. Like, we'll help you get to watch it for sure. So
also, story-wise, not comics. The comics are amazing. I highly recommend the Darth Vader story. That's miniseries is really good to read.
The whole Darth Vader comic. I got it for Jax Alvarez for her birthday, actually. A few years
it's
ago.
so good.
It's marvelous. It's marvelous.
And of course, the extended universe books. Those books are
If you've got a story, a book, and here's the thing, and I don't think this gets said enough. There was some absolute dookie in the extended universe. There's some bad Star Wars.
God.
But here's the thing, and this is, I was mentioning earlier how I think like the licensing restrictions are a huge problem, because there's always been a lot of bad Star Wars being made. There's always been a lot of bad Star Wars. There were bad Star Wars video games getting made. There were bad Star Wars books getting written. There were bad like comics being made and all this sort of stuff. There was just forgettable nonsense that had almost no connection to the canon, or like self-inserts with like original characters in situations that made no sense. There was like pearlescent white Darth Vader who is like a good guy, but also Darth Vader makes an appearance.
That was the alternate story of.
We got like a bunch of weird stuff in the extended universe, but because it was an more open license and a lot of people were making content for it, you had a lot more. We were getting 3 Star Wars games a year at one point. We were getting 3 or 4 Star Wars games a year. We were getting 3 or 4 Star Wars books a year. We were getting, if not more, we were getting dozens of Star Wars comics a year. So it didn't matter that even a lot of them were bad, because like there were some real consistent gems. And now, because there's just like so little content being made for Star Wars in comparison to what there was, that content really has to be good,
right,
in order for us to enjoy it. And to that point, if you haven't seen Mandalorian,
see it.
You should see it. It's some of the best Star Wars we've seen. Also, if you haven't seen Rogue One, I feel like it was one that was skipped over by a lot of people because it wasn't a numbered episode.
And no one talks about the Solo movie because it was garbage.
I don't think it was garbage. I think it goes right back in that pit of like
a bad Star Wars movie.
It was just kind of forgettable, Like,
yeah,
it was like a cool heist movie. And it had Darth Maul in the very end of it, and that was kind of cool. It had that really cool train fight sequence and all kinds of stuff there. But like, again, it's just like all that sort of stuff. It was meh. Yeah, AK kind of sums it up there. It was just like, it was all right. It was, again, what do you know? Another project in the Star Wars canon that suffered from a re-scrambling of creative direction halfway through.
That being said, what topic do we talk about next week?
I know. We've talked about all the things I want to talk about.
I'm sure you've got some other things.
Oh my God, I've got so much stuff we want to talk about. I was about to say I don't think anybody in chat gives a shit about Warhammer 40K, but then I saw Vladimirovich's name and I was aptly corrected.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's kind of the big condition, is all that sort of stuff. I'd be happy to introduce you to Warhammer 40K. That's like if you want to do this, but I don't know if that's really what you're after.
I'll be honest with you. I already have a game that I play that already eats my money, and that's Magic the Gathering.
I'm
40K
not interested in talking
has
about the tabletop game for what it's worth, for which I have
story
models
wise.
literally
Okay,
right here. I'm more interested in talking about the lore.
I know a bit of it.
Um,
Nurgle, Nurgle.
yeah, and Space Marines, the Horus Heresy, etc.
Yeah.
The lore of the various races. Killjoy brings up a very compelling point. Lord of the Rings, to commemorate
Ooh,
Kingsblade being filmed. Um,
I'm down for that. I like
I
Lord.
know a lot less about Lord of the Rings for sure. But I feel like I'm still in talk about it territory. Um, for
I know a
sure.
lot about it. I played a lot of the games too.
Yeah.
Um, what else is there? Things that I will never talk about. Chronicles of Narnia. I have nothing good to say about it.
I literally never watched a single one of the Chronicles of Narnia. Nor did I read the books. I just hard skipped that one. It came out at a time where I really wasn't into high fantasy.
You're not
So,
missing much.
yeah, I mean, I get that impression. I listened to the soundtrack and I loved it. Um, oh yeah, when do we
Oh
see
yeah,
Theta's
Doctor
PowerPoint
Who.
for Doctor Who? Yeah.
Right, that was the thing. I think I was taking over next week for Doctor Who.
Mm.
Right.
I'd be okay with Doctor Who. I
Doctor Who.
I don't know, or I can't contribute as much to that conversation because I like
Do you want your homework? Because I can give you your homework.
I don't want homework. Is that an option?
Fuck homework. I'm not in school.
I feel
I'm
like
not
I've
gonna.
already done as much as I can to like have a well-rounded understanding this. I've seen the big plot points. I understand the story basically from start to finish. I've seen at least one episode of each Doctor. And
You could literally just get the ending of each season and pretty much sum up what happened.
yeah. 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 All that sort of stuff.
Killjoy, we could talk later about that because, quite frankly, I have enough ranting material on Chronicles of Narnia to last the night.
I literally never ingested it. The first movie seemed fine. It seemed fine. I didn't really know what to look for because I hadn't ingested the books. It seemed like
It was great
it seemed.
until the ending of the last book.
I was gonna say it seemed like. Wait, it was great until the ending of the last book.
Yep,
So
the big reveal of everything.
I know, but does that really constitute a bad series then?
Yes,
Hmm. Okay. I mean,
because
I assume you're going to reveal to me now that it was like some sort of like deeply invalidating thing, just like sort of like it was a dream the whole time, something kind of that
no,
effect.
no,
Well, you don't have to tell me specifically what it is, but it is something like that where it just kind of took the air out of the whole experience.
yep.
Okay. I mean, that's negotiable then. I do wonder if a very 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 shitty ending to an otherwise decent experience constitutes the experience therefore being bad. But that is way more of a philosophical
it
question.
it ruined it essentially. If you're watching something that's great and the ending is the big reveal that kind of ruins it for you, you can't watch it the same way again because you know what's going to happen. It's like those movies that you have that plot twist at the end that reveals the entire thing, so it makes the point of watching it again moot.
Right. Right. Because you know, like, well, none of this
Yeah,
mattered. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like, well, this was pointless.
Um. Okay. Yeah, that's very well. I had to drill you on that because sometimes you say you hate things, and then I realized that
There's a reason behind it. There's
you're
always
hung
a
up on
reason.
something weird and old dudeish, and but no, that's a very valid criticism. So,
Oh yeah, it's
um,
I love like a lot of things that I usually hate. There's a reason behind it. I usually just go off on a tangent and scream, "I hate this! This is terrible!" Blah 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 blah. And when I calm down, I usually explain why I hate it or why I dislike it.
Killjoy pointing out that like that's the struggle of the standard anime fan, isn't it?
Yep, yep. It's the
Yep.
otaku rage.
Having the fucking ending just take the air out of all of your tires.
Yeah, it's the traditional otaku rage.
Mm-hmm.
This is terrible, blah, 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 and they're like, why was it bad? Well, actually, the reason why.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was 265 really solid episodes, and then 5 god awful ones that fucking ruined the whole thing, and you're like,
Yep.
whoa, is that possible? And you're like, trust me.
I could mention one that they still haven't gotten right yet, and they're still working on it.
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
That was exactly my point.
They almost finished it. They almost finished it again with 11122223333. They almost finished it, and now they're rebooting it again because yeah, they're going back to the beginning again. They're not. They're literally like just stopping that. They're like, okay, nope, we're starting from the beginning again. And I'm like,
stop it! Just no.
Is this like a joke at this point? Like, are you just like fucking with us? Because here's the thing, Neon Genesis is so weird that like, and I think the creator's like just playing fifth dimensional chess with his fan base in such a way that I'm like, is you rebooting it 3 times really going to come down to like a relevant plot line in like the final episode of the final, where it's like yes, and then something like this, it's like wait a minute, what, like it ties all back in, like, you know, it's like I'm waiting to see if like we're getting taken on the longest ride in like the history of anime, but so far it just seems like people are in love with the middle of this story, and even the creator himself has drawn himself into such a corner with this absolutely ludicrous plot that he's telling that he can't get out of it.
It was like Canadian television's constantly showing Dragon Ball Z, and they only get to the end of the first story arc and then restart right back from the beginning again. Constantly, it's like, okay, I know there's more than this. I've seen it. Show more of it.
I'm thinking Killjoy, the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion, he's read my book, Thinking in a Non-Euclidean Fashion by Garrett Allen.
I think we're done.
It's the joy of man to desire to rise above one's station, or the failings of men, the failings to think in a non-Euclidean fashion. These two things. This I do hypothesize. What the fuck what stupid shit do I say in that show? Did you like the D&D episode?
Yeah, that episode was pretty good.
Yeah, he says.
I'll be honest with you, I am totally 100% on Rich's side in regards to DMing and everything going completely wrong.
I know, right? You want to know what's really funny? He's not like that at all in like his real DMing.
Oh, I know.
Like in the show, for plot purposes, in order to create the established sort of like like arc there, Rich is literally the least stingy DM on earth. Like if you're just like, hey, it makes sense in my character's backstory for me to have the most powerful gun in the game, he just goes, okay. And he just gives it to you.
Yep.
Because that's fun.
Oh, man, he would not want me to play an evil character because I'll end up killing everybody at the end of the
exactly.
chronicle.
That's exactly the problem that happens, is like every single character gets so big and so bloated that like you have this like he has these huge logistical problems to deal with. Like, we played this Star Wars game like recently, and by like the 5th or 6th session, we were like dealing with Palpatine. We were like, yeah, because we had basically completely come out on top of every single counter that we had at that moment, and we were like in Palpatine's pocket. We were like, what? Like, okay, cool, that's great. I stab him.
Oh my god, that reminds me of a Star Wars D&D session. So we had a Jedi character who was on this one planet trying to get escape a Imperial base with stormtroopers all around. He sneaks up from behind and puts the butt of his lightsaber to the back of the stormtrooper. The first reaction was simply priceless by our DM. The DM looks at him and goes,
so he held
great,
it up. He like held
you're
it
in
up.
an Imperial base filled with Imperial stormtroopers with a lightsaber pointed at one of its back. It's basically going, Mr. Stormtrooper, I have to go to Coruscant, I have to see the Emperor. Like, hello? Are you dumb?
Are you dumb? Yeah, so yeah, just ludicrous shit like that, which is funny because and then he paint in episode 5 he paints himself as this one's like no minimum gold, basic weapons, no pair, you can't have that spell, all this sort of stuff that's like very litigious DM. He's not at all like that in real life, which is
I
funny.
don't think anybody would play under a DM like that.
No, no, yeah, for sure. I mean, the closest we have to somebody who's very litigious like that is Brandon, but Brandon has found a way to make like
It work.
yeah, it's because like Brandon's more about enforcing scarcity because like having like you if you're worrying about resources in the game, then you care a little bit more about how things go, and therefore that's like a factor in you being emotionally invested. He kind of
Right.
walks that balance a little bit more, but yeah, nobody just like how none of us are like distractible pieces of shit in quite that way in real
Right.
life. That's just that was the show, and that was kind of funny because
Oh, genius. It was
um,
well. It was very well. Very well
I was gonna
written.
say Faith was this ultra distracted character in the thing, or this like very money hungry like distracted character. Faith does not give it. Faith in like real life is one the most glued to the table character person in the game. She's the one who takes like better campaign notes than the DM. She will always be able to recount like you can ask her about a session 4 weeks ago and she'll be like, oh yeah, we talked to such and such at this and da da da. Like what? You could just ask her like any weird detail. She just has a note for it.
That sounds
And
familiar.
she is also like not money hungry at all. She is like purely like develop character and like all this sort of stuff. Just like very this Polo Asada. It's what Killjoy says.
That is totally like I'm like that too. Like I could literally tell you exactly what happened in the session
Yeah, you're like really
verbatim.
invested in like the minute to minute, beats. Yeah, our version of that is Faith, and Faith was like
Yeah.
this, like whatever, fucking stab him, take his money, I don't care. Those stuff like couldn't be further from the truth. Um, Lauren is the one who plays like super complicated characters with like super insane backstories. Say Jackie, Lauren also has like a photographic memory of like every single rule book.
All
So
about photographic memories.
um because when she doesn't have her Adderall, she'll just read them, and as a result, it's just burned up here. So amazing person to have around. Um,
I am
really,
so glad I
really,
got this.
really, really good group to play with in real life. I love that we have a D&D episode about in our show
This
that's
thing is
about
awesome.
being shitty. Oh yeah, look at that thing,
Freaking great.
Ravenloft. All right,
Um,
you ready? You ready
yeah,
to end the stream?
I am.
Yeah, it's been going on 2.5 hours. Thank you for sticking around, everybody. The holding tight at our usual 6 viewers. How about that? um, we gonna see you tomorrow, Scott?
Yep.
Okay.
Part 4 of.
You doing D&D on Saturday?
Uh, I think so. Might not. I might be taking a break. We might be doing some more Secret World. Maybe
Mm.
something else because we're. I don't want to do it every week because if I do that, I'm going to burn myself out.
Yeah, that's fair. Vladimirovich, you were not unpleasant today. Don't put yourself in there. Why would I kick you? You didn't
Next
say
week.
you didn't say anything like remotely controversial. You just had a
Oh
hot
yeah.
you had a hot take about Hollywood, which I don't know that I didn't disagree with. I'm just the one on stream. You know what I mean? Um, AK with 1,000 bits. Thank you, my friend. As always, I hope you are taking care of yourself. Get a computer. Take care of yourself. You deserve nice things.
You
Um,
do. You really do.
Killjoy. I will oil my joints. I think I need to oil my joints. Um, and yeah, y'all are great. We'll catch you tomorrow for he'll catch you tomorrow for Final Fantasy VI.
Yep.
Okay,
More Final Fantasy 6.
and then see about some Secret World.
Let's see about
And
that. Maybe something else. Who knows?
yeah,
I gotta get that bot up and running for us.
you do, you do. Well, until next time, folks. It's been a real pleasure. I'll catch you on the flip side.